Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Evelyn of Pink Sheep Design, aka The Pink Sheep, and today we are going to be making a Halloween themed cat ear hat, right? So this is the finished hat, and this is what it looks like on with its little kitty cat ears. All you're going to need for this tutorial is 2 balls of yarn in an orange and a black color. And it can be any yarn as long as it is a super chunky or super bulky size 6 yarn. You do also have the option to use a bulky size 5 yarn if you hold it double-stranded. Okay, so you can see these are the 2 colors that I used. I chose to use Lion Brand's Hometown USA. And I only held 1 strand of this for each row. But if you did decide to use a size 5, you could hold 2 strands of yarn together, okay? And that will get you closer to that super bulky size. You will also need a size 12 millimeter hook, a crochet hook. You'll need a tapestry needle, and you will need some scissors. And that's it. So from here, I am going to flip the camera around and we're going to get started making our own kitty cat Halloween hat. All right, we are going to start this hat by chaining 34. Now, if you need help with learning how to create your slip stitch or learning how to chain or create some of these stitches, you can check out my Learn to Crochet playlist here on my YouTube channel, and that will walk you through all of the techniques and stitches that are used throughout this project and in the majority of my other projects. Now, because this hat is worked in the round, and there are no increases or decreases, if you would like to make the hat smaller or larger, you can just start out with a smaller or larger chain. I would consider maybe doing 2 to 3 more or less stitches. So instead of a chain of 34, you could do a chain of, let's say, 31 or 32, or of 36 or 37, if you wanted to make it a little bit smaller or a little bit larger. I am going to go with 34 stitches for my starting chain. All right, so I finished my chain of 34. Now I'm going to lay it out and make sure that it is nice and flat. You don't want your chain to be twisted because you're going to need to join it. And if you have a twist in your chain, that's going to affect the rest of your hat, especially the next row. So I made sure that my chain is nice and flat and I can see the same stitch, the same look of the stitches all the way across. Okay. And from here, I'm going to join my chain. Now, one more tip on this chain, make sure that your chain is not super tight. So if you need to like loosen your grip up a little bit, you don't want these chain spaces to be super tiny or you're not going to be able to get your hook in here to create your next row of stitches. Another option is you could go up 1 hook size. So right now I'm using a 12 millimeter hook, but I could jump up to like a 13 or a 14 millimeter hook if I wanted to make my chain just a little bit larger so that it's not too tiny. All right, so from here I'm going to insert my hook into the very first chain space over here. There we go. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull my yarn through the first loop on my hook and through the second loop on my hook, and that's going to create the slip stitch that I need to join my chain. So now I'm ready to create my very first row. This hat is worked in rows of half double crochet, so it's very repetitive, making it very simple and very quick. So to work our first row, we are going to chain 1, and then we're going to place 34 half double crochet stitches all the way around into each of the chain spaces. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into this very first chain space right next to my hook, pull my yarn through, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops on my hook, creating my first half double crochet stitch. I'm going to do this all the way around. Now that I have 34 stitches, I'm ready to join my row and start on my second row. This is where you will need to change your color, okay? So you remember this is what the hat looks like that we're trying to make, and I change colors every single row. So now we need to change to our black colored yarn. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of length here, and I am not going to cut this orange yarn. I'm actually going to carry this yarn through the back side so that you can leave it and you don't have all of these different ends to weave in. All right, so the technique for joining this yarn, you are going to insert your hook into that last half double crochet stitch. You're going to insert your hook into, it's going to be underneath these first two, these top two pieces of that half double crochet stitch, the first one of row 1. Okay, not into the chain 1 space. You're going to go underneath the two V's, the front two spaces of that half double crochet stitch. And instead of yarning over with your orange yarn, you are actually going to, I like to create a little loop with my black yarn, and I will insert my hook into that loop, and I'm going to pull that through those two loops and through the other loop that's on my hook, okay, creating a slip stitch using that new colored yarn. I like to leave a bit of an end here with the black yarn so that doesn't fall out, so I may pull that a little bit further out, okay, and then from there you can just pull and tighten a little bit on those last two pieces so that they don't come loose, right, and then from there you will chain 1 with your new black working yarn, and you're going to place your first half double crochet stitch, but we are going to work into the back 2 loops only for the next rows all the way until the hat is finished. All right, so when you create a half double crochet stitch, let me see if I can bring this up so you guys can see, you're going to have this first loop here, you're going to have another loop behind it, but then if you flip the yarn even further, there is a third loop back here in the back. We are going to be working underneath these back 2 loops, leaving the front loop untouched, okay? So that is what is going to give the hat these nice ridge lines, all right? So let me insert my hook. I've already chained 1 to start my second row. I can find my working yarn here, okay? I'm going to yarn over, and then I'm going to skip this first loop here, and instead I'm going to go into the second, and I'm going to find that third loop back here, yarn over, pull up my third loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on my hook, creating my first half double crochet of row 2 and leaving this first loop to create that first bit of ridge on that first row, right? So I'm going to repeat this around, yarning over, going through the second and third loop of the half double crochet from row 1 and creating my half double crochets for row 2. And I will show you guys once I get a few of these done. You can see that nice ridge starting to form, okay, right across here. That is from leaving that first loop untouched and only working into the second and third loops of those half double crochet stitches from the previous row. So you're going to continue this all the way around until you have 34 half double crochet stitches. Okay, once you have your 34 stitches of row 2 in your black yarn, it's time to change colors again. Now, since we did not cut this working yarn, this orange yarn, we're actually going to be able to easily pick this back up instead of having to cut our yarn, and then we're also not going to cut the black yarn, okay? So I'm going to insert my hook into this last half double crochet of row 2. I'm going to insert my hook underneath the first 2 loops, okay, of the first half double crochet of row 2. And instead of yarning over with my black yarn, I'm going to find my orange yarn back here, and I'm going to yarn over with my orange yarn, pull up through those 2 loops of the stitch, and then pull through the loop on my hook, okay? And from here, like I said before, I'm going to find that black yarn, and I'm just going to pull a little tight, okay? Not too tight, just pull it snug, right? And then I'm going to yarn over and create my chain 1 to start the next row in orange, all right? We're going to be doing the same thing that we did for row 2, right? After you chain 1, you're going to yarn over, and you are going to work into not the first loop, but the second and third loop created by the half double crochet stitch from the previous row in black, right? I'm going to pull up my 3rd loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on my hook, creating my first half double crochet stitch of round 3, right? So we are going to continue to work half double crochet stitches into the back 2 loops only all the way around for round 3. All right, once you have 34 half double crochet stitches in round 3, it's time to change colors again, right? So same thing, you're going to insert your hook into the first 2 loops of your first half double crochet of the row, but instead of yarning over with this orange working yarn, you're going to set it to the side, and you're going to find that black yarn that you did not cut from the last row, and you are going to yarn over with that, pull through the loops from that stitch, and then pull through the loop on your hook, and you can pull that loop a little bit tighter, chain 1, and then you are ready to start row 4. Okay, this is the repeating pattern that you're going to do to complete the rest of your hat. I'm not going to do every single row since it is very repetitive, but you can see on the inside how you can start to see these loops that are going up the inside from where you're actually just carrying your yarn through to the next row. All right, now that you have completed your hat, I decided to work to 13 rows before I finish. This is actually my chain side, so my starting chain side. If you made the hat a little bit larger, you could always add a 14th or 15th row. If you made it smaller, you could stop at 11 or 12 rows. It really just depends on the size of the head, but you do not want this hat to be slouchy or it will not create the ear effect. You want it to be a nice fitted hat. All right, so to sew up your hat, you are going to need some scissors. You are going to need a tapestry needle, okay, and you are going to need a length of yarn. Usually for this, I will double the amount of space that I need to sew up. All right, so I'm going to be sewing this top side up, so I am going to create a length of yarn that is double the length of what I need. I'm going to snip that, and then I am going to thread that through my tapestry needle. And then this is the side with my seam, so you can see my seam right here, and I'm actually going to start at the seam, and I like to kind of prop my hat up this way. Let's see if I can get it to work, because I am going to be using the mattress stitch to sew this up, all right? And I'm going to be starting up here at the top and working my way down. Okay, so to do the mattress stitch, you are going to be working from the inside of each stitch space to the outside when you work it, and it's almost like a corset, okay? So if I'm starting at this end, I am going to find the stitch that is right up next to the seam here, okay? And I'm going to insert my tapestry needle underneath 2 strands of yarn. Okay, so that is one of those first chain spaces that I started with, and I'm going to pull it through and leave just enough of a tail so that I don't lose that it doesn't, I want to weave this in. Okay, so I'm going to set that off towards the center, and then I'm going to find the chain space that is closest to the other side of this seam, and I'm going to insert my tapestry needle underneath at least 2 strands of yarn, okay, from the inside to the outside, and I'm going to pull that through. I'm not going to pull it super tight. For now, I'm just going to kind of pull it snug, right? Then I'm going to find the next space, the next chain space, make sure I'm going underneath 2 strands of yarn here from the inside to the outside, pulling it snug but not too tight, and I'm going to continue this for maybe, let's see, 3 more. And you can really see that corset starting to form. Now, once you get through, 5 or 6 of these, I want you to hold that tight here, pull this side, and then hold this side and pull this one tight. All right, you don't want to cinch the top, but you do want that seam to start to become pretty invisible up there on the top. So I just carefully pulled each side tight, okay, without cinching my work. And then once I do that, I'm going to continue that pattern. So I'm going to pull snug but not tight for 5 or 6 of these chain spaces on either side, from the inside to the outside. And I have a couple videos on mattress stitch, specifically if you wanted to see that on a different piece, if that'd be helpful. And then from here, I'm always going to hold this very end of my work and then pull that tight there. And then continue that all the way across. Do a couple more in slow motion for you. I know this orange yarn is a little difficult to see, so I apologize for that, but it was definitely part of the design for Halloween. Here we go. I'm pulling that tight slowly so that way it does not cinch this and make it smaller. I want to keep that length on the top of the hat. All right, so I'm going to continue this process all the way to the other side of the hat, taking my time. All right, once you get to the end, it can get a little tricky. You want to make sure that you are able to continue to see these stitches in here all the way to the end. So I like to just make room with my fingers here and make sure I can find those spaces as I pull that through. I'm going to keep that hole open here with my hand. Find that next space. Okay, and I've got one more. Open that back up, find that last stitch space. There we go. All right, once you get through that last space, again, I like to hold way back here on the other side as I pull that tight. And then you now have a nice seamed up top of your hat, and you would put it on this way, okay? So to weave in these ends, I usually like to find a spot right below the edge of the hat, and I just poke my tapestry needle in there with the end of it, and I will pull that piece through. And then I do the same thing on the other side. So I will get that yarn through the end of the needle, and then find a spot just down below. Insert my needle in there, put my hand in there and grab the needle and pull that through. I don't want to pull these ends too tight because that will take away from the pointiness of the ears, okay? So I try to be gentle, and then I'm going to flip my hat inside out. Now you may have already noticed the inside of the hat actually has a bit of a different pattern, so you do have the option to wear this either way. I would suggest that if you like this pattern more, that I would flip the hat inside out and sew it up from the other direction. Because it will make a difference on how pointy the ears are. So they're not going to be as pointy on this side because I sewed them up on the other side of the hat. Okay, so my favorite way to weave in ends, and I like to include this just because if you are a beginner, this may help you a lot with saving you some time for weaving in your ends. I like to take the end, now that it's on the inside of my hat, I'm going to thread my tapestry needle, and I'm going to find at least two strands of yarn to pull that underneath. And then I'm going to split my yarn. So you can't do this with all yarns, but this yarn and most of the yarns that I use, I can. So I'm going to untwist my yarn until I can separate it into 2 equal pieces. So this is a 4-ply, so I now have 2 strands each, all right? I'm going to thread my tapestry needle with both of those strands. I'm going to leave these out, and I'm going to find 1 strand of yarn to go underneath. See if I can get that under there. There we go. So I'm going to thread those 2 plies of yarn underneath another strand, and then I am going to create a knot where I wrap once, wrap twice, and then pull that tight. Now I don't pull it too tight, I just pull it snug, right? And then I'm going to do the same thing again, wrap once, wrap twice, and this one I'm going to pull tighter. So I'm going to give that a nice tug, and then I am going to snip the ends. Okay, and you can see where I did this when I was weaving in the ends at the end of the hat before I sewed up the top. Okay, so I would do that on the other side, but for now, you can get excited and celebrate because you have finished your Halloween themed cat ear hat, and I hope you love it as much as I do. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, be sure to like it and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any future videos or tutorials. And until next time, happy hooking, guys!